We're starting a new show called Peer Review. This is a show by engineers for engineers. We're going to discuss 3 topics today, which we're going to keep it light and short. The first is something that we see happen in the engineering trenches and a little bit about that. Second is a topic of the week around AI and some things we saw this week around LLM evaluations. And then the third topic is kind of an interesting problem we were facing and working on this week with AI at Bito. Let's jump in. So from the engineering trenches, I think one of the things we were kind of talking about, Anand and I, this week was a little bit around, are we being agile? Is our team really agile? And what can we do to improve that?
Yeah, that was a pretty nice discussion that we had. And when we ask about are we really agile, the answer is yes. And I believe it is true for each individual who's basically looking at the tickets, Jira board, and trying to get the things done very quickly. That said, we keep on having discussions about some of the other POCs or things that we should try out with the engineers. This, in their mind, changes the priority. So although they are kind of all running, we have to basically make sure that as a team we are agile and they are all running in the same direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of interesting, right? It's like everyone's working hard and everyone's agile at that individual level, if you will. Um, it makes you almost think, what's the definition of agile? But then, is the team itself agile? Is the team able to be aligned, like you said, and all push in the same direction?
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you think like best in class teams try to address that?
Basically by being open, having discussions openly, but at the same time making it very clear what is the current priority right now, and at the same time keeping the goals for a particular sprint, or the timeline that you are planning to build and deliver kind of fixed. Because agile is good, you can keep on changing the requirements, as well as design and other parameters that you want to for a particular delivery, but making sure that you have your goals fixed for a unit in time actually helps you to be agile and hit your goals time and again.
Jumping into our second topic, an AI topic of the week, I saw an interesting article from Sebastian Ruder, who was at Google DeepMind for 5 years. He wrote an article this week called The Evolving Landscape of LLM Evaluation. And really what he was talking about how LLM capabilities are outpacing benchmarks that we use. And primarily he kind of mentioned 2 main issues. One is memorization and overfitting. And so, memorization is really that these benchmarks are getting out on the web, they're on articles, they're on GitHub, and so people kind of, they become part of the training data set. And then the second thing is overfitting, right? So it's a little bit like teaching to the test, right? So people are really making sure their models can perform well on those tests and giving them extra examples like that. And he mentioned Mistral as one company that appears to have kind of overfitted according to one of the benchmarks. So I thought that was a really, interesting thing because everyone's paying so much attention to how these models perform on those benchmarks.
And Amar, I totally agree with Sebastian. We shouldn't touch this public benchmarks blindly, because there is overfitting, there's memorization. At the same time, everybody should basically look at these benchmarks to identify or filter out, some of the LLMs that you would like to test, but test them for your use cases. And when you test them, you figure out like, benchmark is at one end, but is it really performing what you need to do? So humans still need to evaluate. We're going to keep our jobs. But that said, evaluation is required. Don't trust benchmarks blindly.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of also mentioning Chatbot Arena, which, probably a lot of people know about, but it's kind of what's it, a more real-time evaluation method, which is you ask a question and it displays the responses from 2 different LLMs. As a user, you don't see which LLMs are, but you vote on which answer you like better. And a lot of people have been kind of paying attention to the rankings there because they're a little bit less subject to some of these memorization and overfitting type issues. They have some other, downsides too, like people might pay a lot of attention to formatting and things like that. But at the end of the day, that's an overall part of the quality of the response. What do you think about Chatbot Arena?
I think it's a good tool, but that said, if you're kind of looking for consistent output for a specific thing, then you might want to run the same question multiple times and see if the LLMs that you have kind of selected actually are responding in the same fashion every
Yeah,
time.
yeah. No, I mean, I think that's for sure. Like we've seen, our we tend to focus on enterprise agents, and there you want reliable, repeatable output. You're not like as focused on, hey, each time I get a creative answer and a cool looking image, if you will.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
all right, moving on to our third topic, the Bito Spotlight. We thought we'd talk a little bit about, something we were kind of wrestling with this week and working on, and that we thought you might find interesting. So one of the things that we have a code review agent, and one of the important parts about it is the context of the code base that we provide to help do a human-like code review using AI. And so, we were kind of dealing with an interesting problem where like somebody changed a function name from one name to another, or wrote a new function. Now, how do you really understand how that old function has been completely replaced, in the code base? And we saw some interesting behaviors there. Yeah.
I won't go too on like what and why, but this problem is very interesting. Like say that you just change a function name. When humans do the review, it's very typical. They'll do a code review for the changed files, but they'll always mention like hey, make sure if there are other places wherein you had called the earlier function which I've changed, that is kind of taken care of. But people don't expect a AI-based code review agent to do the same. They expect it to understand everything and be very clear whether you need to do validation or not. Now that becomes a challenge because you need to figure out on your own when you're doing the code context because of LLM, you know, context window, you cannot pass everything. So how do you let the LLM know that you've kind of verified, checked that all the places are actually changed and you don't need to verify? So that's a very interesting problem for which, we are putting various solutions in place.
What are some of the things that you think, the approaches we have to do there? Like, how do we make that work? I mean, that doesn't seem like a trivial issue.
Yeah, it's not trivial because if you basically change a function name and if you want to make sure that everywhere in the repository the change is accurate, you can't basically feed all the code as context to LLM and then ask it a question because it won't fit in all the context window. So you need to employ techniques like symbol search, AST to go search in the code, make sure that all the places are changed, and then using that information, summarize that for the LLM in a specific way so that it understands that, and then knowing it when it does the review, it doesn't give you output like please verify if these things are taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's a very short thing, but it takes a lot of amount of code outside of LLMs to do that.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. My name's Amar, CEO and co-founder of Bito, with Anand Das, CTO and co-founder of Bito. This show is called Peer Review. We'll be publishing it on a regular basis. Please subscribe to Bito's YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn, and join our Slack community to tag along with us on our journey of building AI agents. Thank you.
Thanks.